And I want to point to a study that was done about violent imagery on television. There are other countries, including Japan, they have more per capita violence on television, but they have a low actual violence in expression ratio when it comes to criminality. Many conservatives and even some Democrats have pointed to video games and also violence on television, but it has to go deeper than that, Marianne, because of unaddressed issues. For example, critical race theory, they're saying, okay, you can't teach it. It's not even taught in K through 12 education in the first place. But basically analyzing the violence of America and how that violence has been institutionalized, ingrained into the culture of who we are. How do we attack that?
Well, I think, first of all, I want to go back for a moment to this issue of video games and violence on television, because this is very significant in terms of brain development of young children. When a 10-year-old watches a violent image in a video game or on a television, it's a different brain filtering than when a 40-year-old sees that. I was reading a story about a 16-year-old or 17-year-old who had committed a murder and actually said to the police in an investigation, well, I do it on video games all day. I mean, clearly the development of recognizing the difference between a game and a real person needs to be actually fostered, and that has to do with the development, the proactive development of greater peace. In terms of any kind of sociological theory, any kind of political theory, if this work is not being done, must we recognize the systemic issues, whether they have to do with racial, whether they have to do with economics or any other area? Must we do this kind of externalized investigation, research, and understanding? Yes. But once again, as Martin Luther King said, we must have a qualitative change in our souls as well as a quantitative change in our circumstances. And too many people purveying the work of justice today, talking about a more compassionate society, are doing it from a very angry place. And as someone who's been through that arc of development in my own heart, angry left-wingers, angry anybody, are not going to bring peace to the world. So I think we have to do the work in our own hearts, stop doing so much projection onto other people as much as analysis having to do with politics and economics and history.
During your presidential campaign, I found it quite remarkable that you did not turn political in any of those debates. You did not turn political in any of your interviews. And some people thought, because of your spiritualist point of view and your let love conquer all point of view, that it was somehow naive. However, it is something that we are well aware, being self-analytical creates true transformation. And in order for true transformation to take place, you must acknowledge that something is wrong. And now you have a societal construct involved in the systemic game of not acknowledging or being self-analytical, even with historical injustices that are easily proven. And that is because we have veered away from a place of a country that actually loves.
I think that in terms of my presidential campaign, I think I was the most political candidate of all. If you actually looked at my policy positions, when it comes to race, for instance, I was the one who actually had a plan for reparations.
What could be the only one.
What could be more political? I was the one who was calling out chemical companies for what they're doing to the food. I was the one calling out the fact that we don't just have a healthcare system, we have a sickness care system. I, along with a couple of others, were making the strong comments about the military-industrial complex. So the idea that it didn't turn political, the problem is the dominant political conversation in our country today is stuck somewhere back in 1987. I think I was having a political conversation which is very 21st century, which does have to do with recognizing we must take on the historical issues, the moral issues, the emotional issues, the psychological issues, and even the spiritual issues if we are going to address the transformational elements that have to occur, including, by the way, I talked about a Department of Peace, because the issues that we have today with gun violence, we act so shocked every time it happens. We shouldn't be shocked. And also the other thing I want to say about being naive. People think I'm naive. Let me tell you what's naive. I'll tell you what's naive. Thinking we can continue the way we are and even survive on this planet for another 100 years. What's naive is to think we can continue the way we are and feel guaranteed that we will have a democracy in another 100 years. That's what's naive. And I think looking at things from a more integrative approach is a 21st century sophistication, and that is true scientifically as well as morally.
I like the way you put that, Marianne, especially how you illustrated that you actually brought more policy detail than anyone else. I remember covering you on my radio show, and I said, this sister is the only one who actually has a reparations plan. The other Democrats were talking about perhaps maybe if the right conditions came, we could study it. You actually had a plan and you put a number to the plan. You were the only one that already offered a number to that plan. But I love how you connect that your campaign was actually hyper political and based on the root definition of politics, which means to be concerned with the dynamics of your country. That's what politics actually means. You are correct. Based on that terminology and that definition of politics, you are the one who provided more details than anyone else. I only have a couple of minutes, but I want to make sure I get this question on the record with you. You've had places like Texas, they have passed ridiculous gun laws that basically allow it to be the real wild, wild west. Even though most Texans disagree with those gun laws, that did not stop the leadership class from passing them. What are your thoughts about this new direction of state legislatures passing gun laws that do not mandate that you have a license to carry, a permit?
On the issues of guns, on the issues of voting rights, on the issues of women's right to choose, on so many issues, the most nefarious things that are going on are on the level of state legislation. Too often when it comes to the left, people like to show up for the hot and sexy federal campaigns. Every 4 years, the presidential, maybe the midterms. The right wing has been actually more politically sophisticated. They know you gotta run for the school board. You gotta run in local elections. You've gotta run for the state legislature. And I think part of the awakening that must occur now, I meet so many young people who say, how can we pressure our leaders? I say, don't think in terms of pressuring them, think in terms of replacing them. Run for city council, get started, run for your state legislature. We have abdicated the field electorally in too many ways when it comes to those state houses, and that's what has to change first in our thinking and then in our behavior in Texas and all around the country.
Marianne, you definitely are a thought leader and a spiritual leader, and we appreciate your time on Indisputable. You did not let me down. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Good luck with your show.
Thank you.